It's Christmas, everybody! Yay! Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good, holiday junk, whatever. And if you have the El Rey Network, you're probably watching the Kaiju Christmas Marathon like I am. Because nothing says, home for the holidays like watching a man in a rubber suit destroy model cities. That's how this holiday should be celebrated, right? Speaking of Godzilla, I have a new Godzilla comic to talk about. Well, new for me. Yeah, I got this actually as a Christmas present, and I read it, and I decided to do a review on it. Actually, I got this last night. It's a long story. Anyway, bottom line, this is a new comic, and I wanted to review it. I haven't done a Godzilla review on the comics, at least, since Cataclysm, I think. Well, no, Rage Across Time, that was it. But yeah. Speaking of Godzilla, this is Godzilla Oblivion, obviously, and this was probably the second to last thing IDW published in terms of their Godzilla comics, which I don't know if they still have the comic rights, honestly, because they haven't done anything since Rage Across Time, and I was kind of hoping they would. So that's kind of the thing, is that does IDW still have the comic rights to do Godzilla? I don't know. It's kind of tough to say. I'm not sure. But yeah, so far this is the second to last thing they've done in recent times, and like I said, Oblivion. And Oblivion is by far one of the most unique takes on the Godzilla comics ever. Like, I mean, Godzilla in Hell is a big one, but this was also pretty unique because it's so vastly different from anything else I've seen, and these miniseries they do are kind of like big what-if comics with Godzilla in it, and that's kind of the big thing here, is that this, well, in Hell's pretty unique because it's Godzilla going to Hell, and in Rage Across Time, it's Godzilla in different timelines. But this is, in concept, probably one of the most unique, I would say, even more than Godzilla in Hell, because, yeah, this deals with multiple Earths. Now, this was a 5-part miniseries, and the story is about this professor who builds a machine that can allow people to enter other Earths. However, his boss kind of urges him, rather than take precautions, just to go in, let's not have a test run, let's go in and check it out. He even makes a joke like, look, I've seen movies like this. You boss me around, I start up the machine, something goes bad. And guess what? That happens. They go to this other Earth, and this other Earth is interesting because it's a world infested by monsters. And, you know, it's kaiju, but it's a little different in that there are multiple kaiju, but they're very small and young. Like, they get attacked by a swarm of Rodans, and there's actually, and this is one of the coolest things about this comic, is that they have these Kiryus that are like Iron Man suits. Well, they're more like the Iron Legion from Age of Ultron, where they're like AI robots, something like that. So it's like these miniature Kiryus, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Too bad they don't do much with them. Well, they do, but I'll get to that moment. This comic is if you haven't guessed already, this comic is kind of varying for me. The artwork, oh man, it's not terrible like it is in History's Greatest Monster. It's not that level of bad. But there's actually some good shading, like there's some good images, like the Kiryu squad, like booting up, there's some great shading in there, and when Godzilla is using his atomic breath, it's like, oh, that's really good. And there's some nice, like, almost manga-esque designs to the monsters. But there are some that just made me go, oh, that's bad. Like, oh, Biolante and Zilla. I mean, you only see them briefly, but oh my god, they are bad. Like, oh. And there's some even points where even there's even a human in here named Weinstein. Don't worry, it's not, the first name's not Harvey. That I didn't realize was a girl. I didn't even realize that it was a woman until someone said she, and I was like, that's how bad the artwork is sometimes, is that when you can't tell a man from a woman. So yeah, getting back to this world, just wanted to throw this out there. Getting back to the world itself, the world is, this other Earth, this professor and his team discover, is infested by monsters, and if they get too big, they'll destroy everything, which they already have, but they'll just wipe out more of humanity. But the only thing keeping them at bay is Godzilla. And there's kind of some parallels to Cataclysm. In fact, this would have been really cool if this was like a sequel to Cataclysm. Even though I wasn't a big fan of Cataclysm, I think it would have been cool because they do the whole, multiple monsters here, but they don't do the whole Godzilla worshipping as a god. They just say, we do everything to keep him happy, and he destroys the other monsters. They don't know where he comes from, but sure, whatever. So they go back, but they accidentally bring King Ghidorah with them. Now, here's the other thing I have a problem with this comic, is the pacing is so goddamn fast. Like, 2 pages in, we're already in the other world. I mean, congrats for being fast, but there were points in this comic where I literally had to, like, double take and flip back pages just to make sure I wasn't missing a page or I skipped something over. That is literally how fast it is, and how it skips through the scenes. In fact, it took me less than a minute to read through, less than 2 minutes to read through the first issue alone. Because it is so much like bam, bam, bam. I mean, yeah, I'm all for fast-paced action, but give some breathing room for God's sake. Good Lord. Yeah, but it is cool to see Ghidorah finally be a centerpiece villain in a Godzilla comic. I mean, yeah, you could argue, oh, but what about Kingdom of Monsters? Even in Kingdom of Monsters, he didn't feel like big villain. I mean, the only times he ever felt like King Ghidorah felt like, a big villain in these comics was Godzilla in Hell, but only because he sent him there, apparently, and, Half Century War, and that's really it. That's really the gist of it. And that's kind of the sad thing, because it's Godzilla's arch nemesis. Even in Rulers of Earth, I mean, I know they wanted to do so much more with Ghidorah, and because it was very clear that they wanted to, but they never got a chance to do so. So yeah, this is the first, one of the major times Ghidorah is the centerpiece villain of a comic, and I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. The problem is they rip off Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah half the time. No, really. So their whole plan is when Ghidorah travels back to their Earth and starts destroying everything, they get the idea to bring Godzilla out of that Earth and bring him here, but when he defeats Ghidorah, then who's going to stop Ghidorah? So they go build Mecha Ghidorah. You see, it is exactly like Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. It is exactly like that. It is exactly the same plot, but with alternate Earths, which they don't really play with other than... In fact, you forget for 2 issues that there's an alternate Earth. That's the big thing, is that it totally drops it just so we can have more, because the main focus is Godzilla and King Ghidorah, which is fine, but the whole other thing, ooh, alternate Earths, and one was ruled by all these monsters that if they get too big, they'll destroy everything. And you forget that until the other Earth, with Godzilla no longer around, the monsters grow up, and pretty much the other Earth is like, fuck you guys, and they send all the monsters over to their Earth and ruin everything. And every idea is a really terrible one. Every idea is just a really shit one over and over again. And it's kind of funny because in most of these Godzilla comics, there's always a happy end in some cases, or a satisfying end. And this one just has the biggest fuck you ending ever. But what happens is when Godzilla and the other monsters are destroying one another, the professor who created the gate builds these little nanites that can open these portals into other major cities, and is like, hey, look, these are only going to open until a monster comes along, and then it will automatically shut down. So get your ass through. Not everyone's going to make it, so oh well. And we're going to destroy the Earth behind us. Just saying. That's how it ends. It's really a bad end where they have to go from one Earth that went from 0 to shitty to a Earth that was already shitty. Yeah, they have to go back to the Earth that used to have the monsters in it. The one that, backstabbed them. Yeah. So, this is just okay. I mean, the monster action's fine. The characters are just eh. You really don't give a crap about them. The artwork is varying, but I don't know. The alternate Earth thing is really cool, and the whole idea of Godzilla being the one to keep balancing, being a balancing act among all the other monsters is a neat idea. The problem is they don't go anywhere with them. But I will give it this. Unlike the other Godzilla comics that I felt like needed, that felt like they needed an extra issue or two to, you know, really flesh out the story, in here it just feels like, yeah, this just feels like everything feels like it needed to be here, but they never go further with the ideas. They just feel like I feel like they forget about them. So, yeah. I don't know, if you're a major Godzilla fan, I'd say pick this up. Otherwise, skip it. Yeah. It's just, like I said, it is cool to see finally Ghidorah be like a center villain for a Godzilla comic, where he's just been kind of like the lackey or the side villain for most of these Godzilla comics. Like I said, it wasn't like Half Century War and Godzilla in Hell that were kind of the big ones. And Kaiser Ghidorah. I know, yes, Kaiser Ghidorah was the big end villain in Rage Across Time and in History Greatest Monster. But even then, it wasn't really King Ghidorah, it was Kaiser, so... yeah. Anywho, so that's kind of my, that's pretty much my review of Godzilla Oblivion. Hope you all enjoyed this, and also hope you all have a Merry Christmas, or whatever you guys celebrate out there. Happy holidays, all in all. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that jazz. And yeah, if you've read this comic, just comment below. Let me know what you guys thought of it. And once again, hope you all enjoyed this review, and I will see you guys later.